I'm going to start off with our event guidelines, but we're very excited to have this session today. We have a lot of exciting updates, but I'm going to start with the event guidelines and then we'll go through our agenda. So event guidelines, again, our video. This event is recorded, so you will not appear in the video, but it is being recorded. This is mute courtesy. Your audio will be muted during the event. If you have questions, very important, submit your questions to the Q&A feature. We are not looking at chat actively. At the end of this session, we will have a Q&A session. So any of your questions need to go through that area, and then we'll make sure to answer all the questions at the end of this meeting. Closed captioning is available. To turn it on, just click on the live transcription icon at the bottom of your screen and select that preference. All right. Super excited, everyone. And let's go to our agenda. So my name is Rajiv Ahmed. I'm the CTO CPO here at Meetup. So we'll be sharing a ton of engineering updates here, but a friendly reminder that the product and feature updates are really going to be coming in the Meetup Live dedicated for product updates. Here we're talking about our platform tech and the things that we're doing on that area. But today we do have a guest with us today. That's our marketing expert, Brian, who will introduce himself shortly. But let me just start with a few of the folks here. Anis, why don't you give your introduction, and then Brian, you will go right after. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how long you've been at Meetup, and tell us your last event.
Oh, great. Thanks, Rajiv. Hey, I'm Anis Davis, VP of Engineering. A bit about myself. I like reading poetry and long walks on the beach. I've been at Meetup a little over 3 years, and one of my last events was a virtual code and coffee session. That was really cool to get to talk about nerdy tech things while having a nice cup of coffee.
Awesome. That sounds like a great event. So I'm Brian Munn. I'm on the marketing team. I'm our senior lifecycle marketing manager. And a little bit about myself. I am a big fan of soccer, running, and yeah, it's kind of running's taking my life right now since I'm training for a marathon. But I've been at Meetup for 2 years, and my last event was one about art history. It was really interesting. We all hopped in a Zoom, and the organizer walked through different like artwork and kind of told like the history and different stories about it, and it was really exciting.
Wow, that sounds fantastic, Brian. Well, great to have you both with us. I'm going to start talking about our different topics. We're going to talk about matching, discovery and notifications, and give you a broad perspective of the different things happening there. Small introduction from my side. I'm a big fan of soccer. I'm a Manchester United fan, and the last event that I've been to was last Thursday, which is a Meetup soccer group that we play soccer in Jersey City. I'm not as good as Brian, but one day we're going to have a duel on the soccer field for sure. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I'm going to talk about is matching. Next slide. So matching, what is matching? This is what we are doing to help match members to the right groups and events. And ultimately, we're using technology as the backbone to be able to accomplish this. We have experienced organizers, we have new organizers, we have events and groups, and our matching technology allows us to be able to ensure on all sides they're able to connect. So it's not just connect, but making sure that the fit is the best fit, because that ultimately drives success for our organizers and for our members. Now, this can get complex really, really fast. And on our next slide, we'll talk through how we untangle this problem. All right, so the first way is interest, which is a key driver. So I'm going to be talking about multiple drivers that help solve for matching and how we look at it. The first one is interest. Our members tell us what they are interested in. Now, that's great. When we know what they're interested in, it allows us to actually take those in as attributes that we are able to use to help match. But we always don't have the interest. And so what we also have to figure out is when we don't have it, how can we infer it and how can we apply it? So there's an implied side, and there's an inferred side that we also leverage. As part of interest, the other part is that people are curious. When they come onto Meetup, maybe you've given us some interest, maybe you haven't given us any interest, but folks do like to discover new things. So we have to incorporate interests that are also outside of the areas that we know and learn from that to be able to give great matching recommendations. Now, some things that are really, really important is that at the time when we know the interest and we know the events, they may not be available. So we also have to make sure that when we're looking at how we can match, we look at things that become available in areas that aren't available today. So let's give an example. I'm in Jersey City. I'm looking for a book club that talks about nonfiction or science fiction. And today that doesn't exist. That type of group doesn't exist here. Well, when it does open up, if maybe a week from now, that opens up and someone created that, I definitely want to know about it because I want to be able to join it. And instead of me searching for it, it'll be great if Meetup can recommend that for me when it becomes available. So we take the interest not just for what we have today, but what we can have and how we apply these matching techniques. It's going to be something we give a little peek under the hood later on. So on our next slide, I'll talk through our second key driver outside of interest. So the second one is geography. Geography is one of the main things that we use because it helps us with location, the proximity between the events and the groups that you want to join, and the language. Now, we recognize that there's virtual and there's in person. So these are all things that we have to customize in our own way in order to determine which ones to use. Obviously, language does become an important factor, but we make sure that each of these are weighted and applied. And geography is also a bit tough because it's not just where you are, but folks travel and they're looking to understand when they're going somewhere else versus where they are in their local neighborhoods, what they're looking for, and giving recommendations on that. The other thing is you may be changing neighborhoods, and so you may not know the neighborhoods well. And so we want to make sure that as things are closer to you, we can surface that better and apply that so that it comes up very easily for you to be able to discover. On the next slide, I'll talk about our third one. And the third one is really signals. So we have a variety of different signals that we leverage and we use. One of the things that I mentioned along in geography is a key signal is in real life versus virtual, what type of events members have been going to, what they're looking for. An example of that is a hiking group that's virtual may not be what someone was looking for, but a hiking group in person where they want to meet up with folks may make more sense. So we're looking at categories, we're looking at IRL versus virtual and making sure that these areas have the right signals that we can then leverage in our rankings. The second thing is that as we're getting new groups and new events, we want to make sure that they have a good opportunity to be surfaced, because if we just have tenured ones and not the new ones being exposed, there isn't a good balance. So we always make sure that there's a healthy balance of ensuring that existing groups and events get a lot of activity as well as the new ones that are being surfaced. And another important signal that we always leverage is how many folks are showing up. If there's post-event feedback that's coming back, we take that into our systems to incorporate into those next recommendations, getting better and better over time. So these are just the basics. It gets very complicated and very complex as you go deeper and deeper, but at a high level, interest, geography, and signals are the things that we leverage in order to do matching. So let's go on to the next slide where we'll talk a little bit about the nerdy side of us, right? Which is under the hood, what does this actually mean that's happening? Now, I know in this meeting, we have in this session, we have lots of folks that are techie and non-techie. So for all my non-techie folks, I'll keep it high level. For my techie folks, sorry, but we have to make sure that everybody gets it. So I'll keep it high level, but feel free to ask specific questions in the Q&A section. We have multiple models that we use. There's about 7 models that we use that are key data science models. They allow us to really help determine between the many events and groups that they're discoverable, and we can get participants, members to be able to find them. So just a rough stat, we get about 60K events that are created weekly. We get about 2K groups that are created weekly as well. So as these are all coming in, we want to make sure that we can fulfill members finding them and the organizers being successful in driving people to their events. So the 3 things that you see here are a couple of our models that we have. The first 2 is really popular events and similar events. And what we do for the first 2 is these are to help drive RSVPs. So we make sure that for identifying new members that can come in, how they can find it, how they could join the events and be able to drive RSVPs. And if you look at it from the group perspective, those models look for what are the best folks that are matched for the groups that we have based on popularity, based on similarity, and based on suggestions that we're trying, and ultimately getting them to join those groups so they can go to those events later or interact with our organizers and other members. So these are some of the models that we have today. All right, on the next slide, we have some of the areas that we leverage in our models for personalized recommendations. So NGA is what we call our new group announcement, which is different from your general events that are being announced. What we do is outside of the group members that we're targeting, we're also looking at expanding to new members in our marketplace for new groups that are being announced. So when you are announcing that group, what we do on the back end is determine how do we find members for this group? Where can we go? What are the best matching? What makes sense for members? What makes sense for that group? Tie all of this together and drive ultimately many, many joins to your group that can help it be successful. The other thing that we do is a topic and category-based recommendations for our members. So these are really to say that we want to be able to personalize. We know the categories that you're interested in. How do we take those categories, show you the different groups that are available, local, virtual, in different ways, and use that to be able to take a different approach to getting you to join into those groups. So it's all for discovery. They're very, very complex in that they're solving different problems, and they show up in our platform and off platform in many different ways. On top of all this, we have many non-data science models that our marketing team is always leveraging and building, and this allows us to be able to apply those in our notifications, in push notifications, and in email targeting that really helps drive more members back into these organizer group and events. All right, so on the next slide, I will talk a little bit about our data. So matching is very important, but underneath the hood, we do have a huge data lake. We have about 1.1 petabyte of data that lives in our system. We process 30 terabytes daily just to be able to get these recommendations and models to be fine-tuned, but also recommending the things that we want as output. All of those models that you've seen in the past, along with the things we do for notifications, end up driving 40% of our RSVPs. So they are super important, they're super critical. And every day we are focused on making sure that they are running effectively, but also looking to improve them all the time. Some fun key learnings. 70% of members joining groups prefer closer proximity. So when we go into proximity and how we use that on the data science side, we know it's important. We know that there's a lot of in real life events. We make sure that we use those signals back into our recommendations. These notifications monthly drive over 100 million emails and push notifications easily. And the last one is that the in-person and virtual are key signals that we're expanding on. We're learning, it changes by geography, it changes by state, it changes by location, and we're always looking to make sure that our machine learning algorithms are learning for what's happening to be able to give the best recommendations. All right, let's go on to the next slide. In this one, here's a quick example of where we're surfacing our model. So these are a few slides, and I'll go through some of these examples quickly. Here on the right side, you see a screenshot for search, where we're applying geography and interest and keyword matching. On the right side, if you see that box, that's where we're also requesting members to give us those interests, because once they give us those interests, we can better tailor the recommendations that feedback. So here's an example of where matching is being applied today. All right, next slide. Here you're seeing our personalized homepage that is available across all of our platforms. So there are data science driven recommendations that are showing up here, which you see as suggested. And the underlying models are pretty much a combination of many of the ones that I spoke about to give recommendations across all our platforms. So that means on apps, you're getting recommendations, on web, you're getting recommendations. We have different recommendations that are coming through notifications, and all of these systems are learning to be able to give our members the best recommendations that is meaningful for them. So here were two examples of where we're using our models for matching. And on our next slide, I'll share what's in store for our roadmap in Q4. All right. So as you know, Q1, we really focused on model training. We upgraded our key models with features that we know were important. Q2, we applied the changes along with topics, interests, and neighborhoods. Q3, we released maps and some more recommendations that are coming into that experience. And in Q4, we're going to take all of these things and expand further into notifications and more discovery on and off our platform. All right, next slide. All right, so in summary, as we are looking at matching, it's not just we're going to do one thing and stop. We're always looking to see how matching evolves, what it means to our organizers and members, and how we can adapt in a continuous way. We're seeing today already success with the changes we've done across how folks are discovering. We're seeing increases in RSVPs and more group joins, but we know it's not enough and that we have to continue pushing as much as we can, because we want every member to be able to join a group and join an event. Aspirational, but that's our goal. And we always want to give more personalized push notifications. And so that is a path that we've started and continuing to do. Now, as we're incorporating these into our platforms and features, on our next slide, I'm going to hand it over to Anis, who's going to talk about what we've done for discovery and walk you through in a deeper and separate way how we've taken that from a tech side and product side out to market. So Anis, I'll hand it to you.
Great, thanks, Rajeeb. So I'm going to talk to you about how we've improved discovery by means of maps as well as neighborhoods. First, we've added the ability for members to have a map-enabled search experience. This shows what it looks like on the iOS application. And there are 3 key features that I want to highlight about this. So first of all, you can see in-person events on a map and navigate seamlessly between them. Second, you can take key actions like sharing or saving or viewing an event. And then the third thing I want to highlight is that you can actually expand your search area to whatever location where you're panning and zooming. Now, what's most exciting about this is the engagement that we're seeing from members. We have had over 30,000 interactions with the map functionality since we've launched it. Additionally, there is a high conversion rate, over 4%, from members who engage with our map-enabled search. Based on those positive results, we decided to run an experiment of the map view on web. This is currently rolled out in a 50-50 split. On the search results page, you can view a map in the right rail, and then clicking on that map will highlight the events in the list view. Now, this is great for members to find events nearby that work for both their schedules, and you can do this with fewer clicks. So here's a look at some interesting and fun stats about how search is utilized. First, we have approximately 450 searches happening per minute, which equates to a whopping 17 million searches per month by 1.4 million users. So as we improve our algorithm, we're seeing 21% click-through rate on the search results by our searchers. And so that means 1 in 5 people can find an event or a group to click through from the search results. And then in the bottom right, you can see some of our most popular search queries like hiking, making friendships, book clubs, and more. Now, one more slide on some search stats. Meetup users across the world are engaging with search daily to find events and groups. If you look in by city, the majority of our searches do happen in New York, followed by like London, LA, and San Francisco. Now, the top concern of people who are using search is that they can't find something specific to their neighborhood or zip code. And that's because previously we only allowed a radius approach to search. And so if you look at that image on the left, it's essentially we draw a radius around 1 lat long in the city that you requested, and then we score events and groups for the results based on our matching algorithm. So like, for example, if you live in New York City, but you're way uptown, then we might recommend you events in Staten Island or New Jersey. So to fix that, we've begun adopting what we're calling the neighborhoods approach. This is where events return back to you within whatever neighborhood that you define. And we know this is really important because members attend in-person events in the neighborhood that they're interested in, and this can really help them, especially when they're in larger cities. So far, we've expanded this to 20 major cities, which is amazing, which means 4,000 neighborhoods are now part of the Meetup search experience. And we did this in a phased approach. Phase 1, we started with conducting research just to determine where should we even apply neighborhoods. And we ended up choosing New York City as our first test. That was very successful. So then we began to do the next phase of it, where we improved our matching algorithms to accommodate this neighborhood's data. And at this point, as I mentioned, we're in 20 major cities. We're so excited, and we're already seeing preliminary results with a 2% increase in RSVPs to your events. On this slide, you can see what the current neighborhood-based search experience looks like. This is web, and then on apps, you can see I'm searching for Sutton, London, and then I'm seeing this breakdown of the various neighborhoods in that major area. Now, these experiences are very straightforward and not too sexy right now. However, we're currently working on some new designs to better highlight our neighborhood feature. But we don't want to stop here. Now that we've seen promising results with both the maps and the addition of neighborhoods, we're looking to do even more in this area, and we need your help. On this slide, you can see 3 different features that we're considering to expand on our use of maps to guide members in finding your in-person events. A shows the ability to choose a custom area. In this example, it's in the shape of a heart, but it can be anything that the member chooses. B is the ability to view the map markers based on not only the selected zoom and radius, but also the day of the week. And then finally, we have C, which highlights the total number of events that are available that meet the search criteria. And this is even though their map marker may not be currently displayed on the screen. So if you would please take a moment to answer the poll, which one of these features is your favorite? Is it A, the custom area selection, B, the map markers by date and location, or C, seeing the total number of available events? We really want to hear from you, and we want to know what you believe will allow members to best find your in-person events. So I'll just pause for a second. Thank you so much to the well over 100 participants who are here and rapidly answering the question. This is really going to help us out a lot as we plan for next steps with map and search.
Wow, this
Okay.
is close.
Yeah, like which one? Come on, everybody answer. We need a tiebreaker. Okay, cool. While you think this over, while you ponder these deep questions, I'm going to transition things over to Brian to talk to you more about how we're improving personalization.
Awesome. Thank you, Anise. So yeah, I'm going to dive into notifications and personalization and push notifications and all the fun stuff that goes along with notifications and the complexity and exciting things that are coming. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to first talk about how we trigger our notifications and kind of the vital elements of this to ensure that we're working through all the complexities so that we're providing value to our members and organizers. So the first main thing that we need to hit is we need to ensure that it's real-time data that's passing through to our notifications. And secondly, we need to ensure that it's personalized. So each touch point provides unique value to the person who's receiving it. And then we need to ensure that it's scalable so that it triggers when it needs to trigger. And all 3 of these things together, the real-time data, the personalization, and the scalability, make sure that we're sending notifications that are valuable and relevant to the recipient. Because no one wants to receive an event announcement for an event that's already happened, or an email or push notification that's in a different language than what they've said in their profile. So if you look to the right, here's kind of how we go about triggering a notification. So there's one path where a member interacts with the product, whether that is an organizer scheduling and announcing an event, or a member RSVPing to an event. And then this triggers and allows that member to get that RSVP confirmation. The other way is your status might change on Meetup. So what's that mean? So a member might become an organizer. So then we pass that custom attribute along to our notification system. Or you might RSVP to an event or schedule an event, and then that passes along to your user profile and the notification system as well. And this is vital so that we can ensure that we're segmenting messages and ensuring that you're getting the right message at the right time, whether that's a newsletter or a new product announcement. So if you go to the next slide, how's this kind of look today? So a member creates a group, that data is sent through our system architecture, and then that's triggered welcoming you as a new organizer. We use a multi-channel approach, so that might come through email, push, or both. And then, like I mentioned, with language, Meetup's global, so we have to ensure that that communication that you're receiving is in the correct language that you've set. And to do all of this, it needs to pass through that architecture that I previously mentioned, and it needs to be as close to real time as it can be, so that you're getting this vital information and you know the next steps that you can take, and we're providing these helpful resources to you. So if you go to the next slide, I can kind of talk about what enhancements to notifications and what we're looking to, how we're looking to build and optimize this. So first of all, Meetups continue to evolve. We have new exciting features being released left and right, like Anis and Rajiv have talked about. And with these new features, new actions, attributes are necessary to ensure that the notifications that are needed for these new features go out on time. So an example of this is on the far right with event chat, we're building ways so that when an event chat is going on, you're notified of that so that you don't miss that vital communication that's going on in that community that you've joined. The next thing is we want to continue to expand push and in-platform notifications because we view them as vital touch points. The history of communication, the channels have changed over the years. So we started with the printing press, then the telephone, and then the internet was created. And throughout all this change, the channels have changed, but the goals remain constant. There's that North Star where we want to engage the right audience at the right time with the highest impact in the right channel, so that recipient receives that vital information that they need in order to act and, in this case, find that event or receive that information for that event that's coming up. So with that, we see push and in-platform touchpoints as a vital expansion for notifications, whether that's announcing a new product feature in the place that you're actually going to see it and use it, or notifying you of new events that are coming up, or different interactions that you can do in the groups that you're in. We also want to scale personalizations even further. So we want to pull in suggested events in more and more places so that our members are seeing the events for the groups that they've joined and for new events that might interest them, and that we're showing our events from our organizers in more and more places to provide those more pathways so that our members and organizers are finding communities and there's more and more places for people to grow with those communities. So at the end of the day, with notifications, we're continuing to enhance them so that we can provide that relevant value to our members, organizers, and the entire Meetup audience as a whole.
Awesome, Brian. That was a fantastic amount of information. I feel like I've learned a lot today as well. I want to just recap for everyone. We covered some great content today. Anis and Brian, thank you so much. I want to just make sure that all of us understand the matching part plays such a big part. It allows us to be able to really establish the connections and help members and organizers really find and build connections on our platform in ways that are important to them. We take that and we bring them to in-product experiences, as Anis showed, whether they're on maps or recommendations in different areas that really help the discovery aspect. And then on top of that, all these enhancements and notifications are what Brian touched on, which is really scaling our personalization levers to be really expand more and deliver more on top. So this was a wonderful way to put it all together. It's a huge team effort because it's engineering, it's product, it's marketing, it's all of us. And I'm very excited to share all these updates with you all. All right, next slide. All right, we recently launched our Discord community. So if you're not there and you're an organizer, you definitely should check it out. To our Meetup organizers, you'll meet fellow organizers here around the world, get advice from mentors, organizers with years of experiencing managing groups on Meetup, or even a little time will be there, and they're here to share feedback, share updates, and any chat that you want to have over there related to Meetup features will also there. So if you want to scan the QR code, I'll give everyone 30 seconds, scan that, and so you can join it. It's a very active community, and it really helps us get a ton of feedback, which then goes back into our products. So I'll give everyone 10 seconds more to be able to get the QR code. All right, Emily just also messaged on our chat, so you have more instructions there as well. All right, I'll give everyone. All right, perfect. We are on to the next one. All right, so if you have not heard of our Keep Connected podcast, make sure to join. You always want to be connected to Meetup, and that's the best way to do it. So please scan this QR code, join the Meetup podcast, and get up-to-date information, and keep connected with our CEO, David Siegel. All right, I'm going to give 15 seconds for this part, and then we will jump into our Q&A section. For those of you that have not listened to the podcast, it really is wonderful. I go back into many of the sessions that I missed, and every time I go to them, they're really, really great. So definitely check it out. It is very meaningful, and they're great podcasts. All right, we're going to jump into our Q&A part. I'm going to pull up the questions. All right. All right, I'll help. This is for Anis or Brian. Can you give us more color on how group popularity factors into group matching? Also some color on how group rating factors into group matching. Ooh, that's a tough one. Let me try to, can you give us more color on how group popularity factors into group matching? Also some color on how group ratings factors into group matching. So I can take this one. Anis and Ryan, feel free to jump in. For group matching, again, I think we take into the three factors, as I mentioned before. We do look at the group interests, right? Who's interested in that? We do look at into, for that group, how much activity, how many folks from that tied into the events that were created, activity that's happening as a result, and really using those as boosting mechanisms for when we're doing group matching. I will add a caveat that we do have different ways of looking at new groups that are created versus existing groups, because if you try to score them the same way, it would not work, where all the older ones would always outrank the new ones. Now, for all our tenured organizers, that doesn't mean that you're going to get less folks on yours. It just means that the algorithms are unique based on different areas, and they're always optimized to get the most number of members into your groups. As far as how great group ratings, those come into the thing. I'm actually not sure with that question what you meant, but what I will say is that we do have ways that we give boosts to groups. But again, it's based on activities, based on feedback that we collect through our systems. If there's negative feedbacks, then they won't apply the boosts, right? And other things that do get the boost end up ranking higher. One of the questions that we have here is for Anis. On maps, is Toronto one of the 20 major cities? That's question number one.
Yes.
And are maps available on both website and the app?
Okay, so yes, Toronto is one of the major cities. Maps are available on the apps, but it's running as a 50-50 split test right now on web.
Great, thank you. Another question that came up, why the feature limitation on the Canadian version of Meetup app? Will this gap be closed? Should we always expect some kind of feature versus the US version of Meetup?
I would just like to know what limitations they're experiencing. So maybe, Emily, if we can share a link for support or someone can reach out to them so we can find out what the differences are. For the most part, English speaking, we normally release the features English speaking first. So I wouldn't expect to see too many discrepancies in Canada.
Great. All right, I'll take this question. What does 70% of members joining group prefer closer proximity mean? Great question. I think that was from Pete. Pete, basically an observation that we saw is that as folks are searching and they're choosing groups that they're joining, the groups that are within a 100-mile radius tends to be the ones that most of them end up joining versus not joining. And 70% of them end up only joining if they're within that mile radius. So it's just an insight that we derived from all of our events. So it was a key learning that we're seeing. That statistic may change next month. It may change in the next 3 months. It's just a statistic that we're seeing right now as of this quarter. And that's closer than what? Closer than what, again, I think when we're looking from a miles perspective, 100 miles, if from kilometers, it would be the conversion, but it's closer than that 100-mile proximity is what we're comparing it as. And then that's the benchmark that we used to look at proximity. All right, so we got through a few questions. I think we have time for a few other ones. All right, this one is for you, Brian. Someone asked, what are some exciting things for notifications we should expect in Q4?
Yeah, I think the big one is the expanding personalized events into more places, and so that our members are seeing suggested events in more and more emails or push notifications, and then we're marketing organizers events in more and more places to provide those more pathways. I think another one that we're looking at putting out is around, we saw a lot of success in this last quarter around kind of triggered nudges and providing badges and rewards to members who RSVP. And we're looking at ways that we can expand that into other actions as well.
Great, thank you, Brian. All right, we're gonna take the last two questions. This one is for Anise. Why the focus or people going into the organizer app when there are other low-hanging fruit improvements we could do from a design or the website?
This is my favorite question. So first, we do tackle low-hanging fruit for the website and the apps all the time. Every single product team has 20% maintenance bug fix time allotted to them every single iteration. Also, many teams have what we call quick wins, which is where we address many of this low-hanging fruit, which you can definitely see in the release notes for the app, as well as the release notes that we put on the blog every 2 weeks. As far as the organizer app, why the focus there? It's because over 65% of organizers are actively using our native applications, and we want to give them the best on-the-go experience possible. What we've been able to launch on the organizer app, the speed with which we've been able to do it across both iOS and Android, honestly, in my opinion, is extremely impressive with the tiny mobile apps team that we have. So you have Zoom integration, you have Markdown support in your event descriptions, event feed support, attendee management, and just launched yesterday is our brand new event check-in functionality, which is like absolutely impressive. Please upgrade your org app if you haven't. So that's why the focus. We want to make sure that we're giving organizers the very best that we can in record speed And that's why the Organizer app is the way that we're going to be able to do that.
Great. Thank you, Anise. Person anonymous, I hope that helped answer your question. I'm going to quickly go through a few of them that I think I missed. When matching, do you see search history? Also, do you do a small percentage of matches totally random? Great question. We do take search behavior into account, not necessarily search history, but that is something we're looking into. And for randomization, we do that with our notifications when we're looking at some of these models. They actually end up randomizing a subset to be able to do automated split testing, which then gives us learnings, which then gets applied. We don't do that on search today, but when we do any algorithm changes, what we do is we split test them in production, make sure we get learnings. But randomizing the results, we don't do that today. That we do more of that in our notifications. Great question. Another person, Christine asked, for matching technology, what do we prioritize the drivers, interest, geography, signals for members? What is the most important for the models? I think I can say that interests and language definitely are the ones that are very critical. I think geography plays a part, but if the interests and the language definitely plays a very, very big part in how they rank. Now that differentiates for each of the models. Each of our models have distinct features that help scoring, and I think it depends on which model we're talking about. So something on search may be very different than something that's a recommendation, or for groups, which may be very different for a recommendation for events. So Christine, I know it's a boilerplate answer of like, it depends, but it really does depend. All right, I am seeing that we have answered all the questions, which is great. I thank you all for joining our session. If there's anything that we missed that's in Q&A, we will certainly try to get an answer back out to you, but I look forward to our next one. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anise. Thank you, Brian. And everyone have a wonderful day or night.